I never imagined I'd end up with an HOA nightmare of my own, but life had other plans. About a year ago, I moved into Sunnyside Estates, a picture-perfect suburban neighborhood with neatly trimmed lawns and neighbors who smiled and waved. Well, most of them did. There was one glaring exception: the HOA president, Karen Wilkins. From the very beginning, Karen made it clear she ruled the neighborhood with absolute authority. She was in her 50s, sporting the classic bob haircut, permanently tight lips, and a clipboard that might as well have been fused to her hand. My first run-in with her came just 3 days after I moved in. I was still surrounded by boxes when she stomped up to my front door and informed me, without so much as a hello, that my mailbox was exactly 2 inches below regulation height and needed to be corrected immediately. No welcome, no offer of help, just a violation. I fixed the mailbox, smiled politely, and hoped that would be the end of it. It wasn't even close. Over the next few months, Karen found something new to complain about almost every week. My grass was half an inch too tall. My trash cans were visible from the street for 15 minutes too long. The beige paint I used to touch up my garage door was desert sand instead of the approved coastal dune. I wish I were exaggerating. Despite it all, I stayed calm. I made the required changes, vented privately, and rolled my eyes behind closed doors. But things went from irritating to downright insane when I adopted a cat. Jasper was a gorgeous orange tabby from the local shelter with the gentlest personality imaginable. He was mostly an indoor cat, but I'd sometimes let him relax on the front porch to enjoy the sunshine. He was always secured with a harness and long leash, with water nearby. Before long, Jasper became my constant companion, greeting me at the door after work and sleeping at the foot of my bed every night. About 3 weeks after adopting him, I received a certified letter from the HOA. According to Karen, pets visible from the street violated Section 12, Paragraph 4 of the Sunnyside Estates Agreement. That didn't sound right. I reviewed the HOA documents carefully. There was nothing banning visible pets, only a rule against animals roaming freely. Since Jasper was always secured, it was obvious Karen was inventing rules again just to flex her authority. This time, I decided not to let slide. The next HOA meeting was that weekend, so I came prepared. I printed the homeowner's agreement and highlighted the relevant sections. As soon as I walked into the community center, I felt Karen's glare lock onto me. She sat at the head of the table, stiff and imposing, like a suburban dictator overseeing her miniature empire. When the floor opened for resident concerns, I stood and calmly explained that there was no rule prohibiting secured pets from being visible. Karen's face flushed deep red as she cut me off in a sharp, shrill voice. The HOA board recently voted to amend that rule, she snapped, waving her hand dismissively. All animals must now be kept indoors or in backyards only. The room went quiet. Confused, I asked when this vote took place and why homeowners hadn't been notified. Karen's eyebrow twitched as she shuffled through her papers. There was a special session last week, she said quickly. Notices will be sent out soon. Something felt off. I glanced at the other board members, who looked just as confused as I felt. That's when Dave, a retired attorney who lived down the street, spoke up. I don't recall any special session, Karen, he said flatly. At that point, the meeting fell apart. Karen abruptly adjourned before anyone could ask more questions. As people filtered out, Dave pulled me aside and whispered she's been making up rules for years. Most folks just go along with it because fighting her is exhausting. He advised me to keep letting Jasper enjoy the porch while he looked into whether Karen's so-called amendment was even legal. The next morning, I had an early work meeting and had to rush out. The weather was beautiful, so I set Jasper up on the porch with his favorite cushion, secured his harness and leash, and left him water. I planned to be home by noon, but my meeting ran late, and traffic was worse than expected. When I finally pulled into my driveway around 2 p.m., my stomach dropped. Jasper wasn't on the porch. His water bowl was still there. His cushion hadn't moved, but the harness lay on the ground, unclasped. Panic set in instantly. I called his name, searched my yard, then my neighbor's yards. Nothing. After 30 frantic minutes, I checked my security camera footage. I'd installed cameras months earlier after Karen falsely accused me of leaving my trash cans out overnight. What I saw made my blood boil. On the screen was Karen, casually walking onto my porch around noon. She unclipped Jasper's harness, placed him into a pet carrier, and walked away, my cat in her hands. This wasn't an HOA issue anymore. It was theft. My hand was shaking as I called the police and told the dispatcher I had video evidence of my neighbor stealing my pet. They assured me an officer was on the way. Then, while I was waiting, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. The message was short, cold, and infuriating. Your cat has been removed for violating HOA regulations. He will be relocated to a more suitable home that respects community rules. I didn't need a signature to know exactly who sent it. Somehow, Karen had got my phone number, and the casual way she announced the kidnapping of my pet made my blood run cold. Rage hit first, then fear. I had no idea where Jasper was or what she planned to do with him. About 20 minutes later, Officer Rodriguez arrived. He was a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a no-nonsense presence that immediately put me at ease. I showed him the security footage and the text message, my voice shaking as I explained what had happened. She just took him, I said. He was secure the entire time. She's inventing rules to justify stealing my cat. Officer Rodriguez watched the footage carefully, his expression hardening with every second. When it ended, he shook his head. This is pretty clear-cut, he said. This isn't an HOA issue. This is theft. In this state, stealing an animal, especially from private property, is a felony. He took detailed notes and assured me we'd deal with it immediately. Together, we walked across the neighborhood to Karen's house, a spotless colonial with a manicured garden and an HOA sign proudly displayed in the front window. The irony was impossible to miss. The officer knocked. Karen opened the door, her smug expression instantly shifting to confusion when she saw the uniform beside me. "Is there a problem, officer?" she asked sweetly, as if she hadn't committed a crime just hours earlier. "Ma'am," Officer Rodriguez said firmly, "we have reason to believe you removed a cat from this gentleman's property without permission. We have video evidence. I need to know where the cat is." Her mask cracked, but only briefly. "As HOA president, I have the authority to enforce our regulations," she snapped. "That cat violated community guidelines. I was simply doing my job." The officer remained calm. "HOA rules do not override state law. You have no legal authority to remove someone's pet from their property. What you've done is theft, a criminal offense. Now I'll ask you again, where's the cat?" Karen's eyes darted back and forth before she finally sighed. "He's in my sunroom," she muttered. "I was planning to take him to the shelter tomorrow. He was unsupervised and could have escaped." She let us inside, clearly unhappy about it. In the sunroom, I saw Jasper, my sweet boy, confined in a small carrier. He looked frightened but unharmed. I opened the carrier immediately and held him close, relief flooding through me as he purred against my chest. Then something happened that I never expected. Officer Rodriguez turned to Karen and calmly informed her that she was under arrest. "Martha Karen Wilkins," he said, pulling out his handcuffs, "you are under arrest for theft of property valued over $500. You have the right to remain silent." Her face twisted in disbelief. "This is ridiculous," she shrieked as the cuffs clicked shut. "I'm the HOA president. I was enforcing the rules. HOA presidents don't have the authority to commit felonies, ma'am," Officer Rodriguez replied evenly. As he escorted her outside, neighbors began stepping out of their homes, drawn by the flashing lights and raised voices. Some looked shocked. Others looked relieved. 2 days later, an emergency HOA meeting was called. Karen's arrest had made the local news, and the neighborhood was buzzing. With Karen out on bail and facing felony charges, the vice president ran the meeting. The vote to remove Karen from her position was unanimous. When the result was announced, the room erupted into applause. It became clear that many homeowners had been suffering under Karen's rule for years, too intimidated to speak up until now. The final blow came when Karen arrived just in time to hear the decision. The color drained from her face as she realized she wasn't just facing criminal charges. She had also lost the power that had defined her identity for over a decade. "You can't do this," she said weakly. "I've given everything to this community." Dave, now elected interim president, stood and addressed her calmly. The community never asked you to break the law, Karen. We never asked you to invent rules or steal people's pets. That was your choice. The room fell silent. Karen staggered back, the weight of reality finally settling in. Without another word, she turned and walked out, the door closing behind her with a final, unmistakable click.